Super Bowl champ and a Hall of Famer. He's been on NFL Fox's #1 show on Sunday for over 2 decades. He's our friend. He's Howie Long, and he is joining us here on a Monday in the Herd. So I was saying to start the show, Howie, I grew up in a generation where boxing was huge. Patrick Ewing stayed at Georgetown for 4 years, and the Raiders every Sunday were in a late afternoon game that felt like a playoff game. Last night, I felt like, wow. The Raiders feel like they're back. As a former Raider watching that, how did it feel for you?
Yeah, I agree. I think John, you go back to the Tuck rule in New England and kind of the unfinished business that he had and wanting to come back and obviously it's a great contract, but I think one of the big reasons why he wanted to come back was to finish the deal. And Derek, the thing that stood out to me, and one of the great things you get with, no fans in the stadium, is you can hear everything.
Yeah.
And watching Derek at the line, he is a full extension of John Gruden. They are kind of, when you're looking at a coach and a quarterback, you're looking at 2 elevators, and at some point they pass and they're at their peak. I think right now is kind of Derek Carr's peak in this offense. And I think John's comfort level with him and an understanding of who they are. They're a physical offense. And it's interesting because it's a contrast in styles. When you look at Kansas City, this game was all about, forcing Kansas City to go on 10, 12, 14-play drives. They want triples and home runs, and you want to force them to take singles and doubles and rally to the ball and make the tackle. And for the most part, they did that. But also Kansas City was up to the task.
Yep.
And they don't walk out of that stadium thinking, yeah, the Raiders, that game was a fluke, a few weeks back.
Yep.
They could have walked out of there with a loss very easily.
Yeah. So the opposite of the Raiders, which are a physical team, is Green Bay. And I've said this, they're the convertible sports car of the NFL.
Funny.
Nobody looks cooler in good weather than Green Bay. But when it gets
that's ironic because it's Green Bay.
Yes. But yet in cold weather or physical games or the second half against the Colts, it doesn't look like they're up for the fight. And you played in this league a long time. Can finesse teams become physical teams after Thanksgiving? Can they?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting quandary because, they're up 14 points at one point.
Yeah.
When you're up 14 points, that's when you want to throw the body blows. That's when you want to possess the football, take time off the clock, steal possessions, force that offense to sit on the sidelines. And, Indianapolis, conversely, is a very physical team, particularly on the defensive front. DeForest Buckner, who I know you're familiar with.
Oh, yeah.
I remember him as a freshman at Oregon walking on the field, and those 2 freshmen, were on the field, those 2 freshman defensive tackles. My gosh. And they make it difficult for you to be physical.
Yeah.
I think to me, it's the turnovers with them. And if you're not going to be a physical team and you can't close games out in the traditional way, you can't turn the football over.
Yep.
And they turned the football over. They were up 14. And is it the end of the world? No. They're still 2 games up in the division. And last year they were a 13-3 team. They beat the teams they were supposed to beat. They got mauled by the physical team.
Yep.
And that's the question, whether it's Tampa Bay, and we've seen it a couple of times this year where Minnesota ran the ball down their throat a bit.
Yeah.
They have to become a team that can close a game out when they have a lead. As you know, they're not necessarily like, conversely, Kansas City, he plays from behind all the time.
Yeah.
And he's great at it. And I think Andy Reid and that offense and all the weapons, they're a lot to deal with in terms of playing from behind. Look at their playoff run last year. They came back from double digits down in each game, including the Super Bowl. So last night for them, end of game, that's what we do. Yeah. Now, in Green Bay, I don't want to say front runner, but, when you're up 14 points, you got to close a game out, particularly on the road.
Yep. I got to ask you, in the NFL, so much of the NFL is fit. And a couple weeks ago, Chris Cooley came on our show, the former Pro Bowl tight end for the Washington football team, and he said
he's a character.
Yeah, but he said he goes, I like Wentz and I like the Eagles. I'm not sure they fit the Foles Super Bowl. He goes, something doesn't work, and I sat there and I thought, Sam Darnold and Carson Wentz, there's a lot of it. Maybe they need a reboot. They need a reset. Could you make an argument with Wentz? There's going to be 7 teams that need a quarterback. Maybe he's best served elsewhere, and it's time to move on?
It's a fascinating situation, one that I'm very familiar with, having a son that played there and won a Super Bowl. He's an MVP candidate. He's probably going to win the MVP if he doesn't get hurt at the game that we covered out in L.A. That being said, he gets hurt. Foles comes in. They catch lightning in a bottle. The defense is very good. They can close a game out. They can be physical. They can be creative. And Nick is a guy who, when he's hot, he's great, and when he's not, he's not. Carson, I've heard people try to overanalyze Carson. To me, it's a mindset problem. Never, ever, ever being willing to give up on a play. Never, ever, ever forcing the ball into double coverage. I don't understand it. I think he's great physically, and I'm a big Carson Wentz fan. But I'm not sure whether it's a lack of accountability when you go to the sideline. When you make that kind of throw and it's Jimmy Johnson on the sideline, you're going to get an earful.
Right.
I don't know. Everyone has a different way of handling quarterbacks, and, it's kind of like the elephant in the room that, we can't say that to him. It's like the star on a show. It's you walk on eggshells to try to get a point across, or maybe you speak to the room, and in reality, you're speaking to one person.
Yeah.
And everyone in the room knows who you're talking to, but you're not directly talking to that person.
Yeah. Well, Howie Long is joining us, the Hall of Famer, 8 Pro Bowls, inducted into the Hall of Fame 20 years ago. So part of being in a Hall of Fame is availability. I think fit matters. I saw Joe Burrow get hurt yesterday, and it was sick to my stomach. In fact, I DM'd him last night, and he responded. I said, God, I'm just sick. And I look at Joe Burrow, and when I look at him, I think, great talent. I worry that the franchise can support him. Do you ever worry about that?
No question, Colin. I think you look at the history of quarterbacks. Go back to Jim Plunkett, way back. Jim Plunkett went to the Patriots, who were a horrible organization.
Yeah.
And much like Burrow, they threw the ball way too much, and the protection was not great and took a lot of hits. If you look at the number of throws that team has made this year, they're in the top 5. If you look at the number of hits, pressures, and sacks, he's on the top 5 again. To expose that kind of a talent where, this guy comes off the books at number 1, and it's your job while the team is growing to try to, in a way, not essentially protect him, but you protect him with max protection. If you're going to go, for example, when the Rams, and it's a team we all watch out in L.A., when the Rams are going deep, how many people do they have in protection off play action pass? It's 6 or 7 initially. So it's a quarterback-friendly offense, particularly on a deep ball. And I think for them, it was, we're exposing our kid to too much. We're just exposing him to too much. Now, the kid out with the Chargers is...
Oh, boy, he's good.
Oh,
my God.
Hey, Colin, he does 4 or 5 things a game that make you go, wow.
I think Justin Herbert is... I was thinking this yesterday. There's part of it that's almost Marino, where it looks so easy to throw a football. You're like, God, and there's no struggle.
But unlike Dan, the first start he gets, did you see him truck the linebacker on the sideline? I'm like, okay, I would, if I'm on that team and I'm a defensive end and I'm going in the locker room and I'm 30 years old, I'm pulling him aside and saying, loved it, that was great, I don't want to ever see that again.
I love watching him play, Howie. I love watching Herbert play.
I love him, and I'm hopeful. I don't – how can a team lose that many games with a lead at the end of the game? You know, I'm a big, Lynn fan, but something, they've got to get this thing figured out and turned around. Now, part of that is getting people healthy. The defensive ends haven't been healthy together for most of the year.
Well, that's why they keep – that's why they keep losing leads. They like Anthony Lynn, and they get a lead, but they have no pass rushers. And I think some of that is solved with injuries. But I'm with you. When I watch Justin Herbert, I've always had this. I remember watching Michael Jordan years ago. It's like 20 years ago. And I remember thinking, there's a bunch of guys in the NBA that are 6'6". Why does it look so easy for him? Herbert makes it look
hard
easy.
To explain other than, while you're bringing up Michael Jordan, who's the only guy that could hold Michael Jordan to 17 points?
Dean Smith, yeah.
Okay, so who's the only guy that can make Justin Herbert look like a fringe first-round draft pick?
Is it the coach?
The Oregon offense. You go to the bowl game, they cut him loose, and then you go to the Senior Bowl. He cuts it loose there. And, if Burrow hadn't had the kind of year he had with the kind of players he had around him, with the team he had and the coordinator that he had that's now in Carolina, I'm not sure if they had, they weren't trusting their eyes. It's kind of like, it's easy to see,
right?
But it's not easy to see.
Yeah.
Particularly a quarterback. I think it's the most difficult position to forecast from high school to college, college to pro, and the kid is like a 4.2.
Yeah.
He's kind of a pseudo-relative with the Wilcox family. Dave and I went in the Hall of Fame together up in Oregon, and they love him. They said the kid is the genuine article.
Howie, we got to run. You're a Hall of Famer. We always appreciate you coming on the show on a Monday, bud. Thank you so much.
Anytime, partner. Say hi to everybody.
I will.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.